The 2021 draft class has thus far, despite it being still very early, is actually looking to be a pretty stacked draft class in the early going based on the potential of some of these players, based on how well they're playing thus far for only being in their second year in the NBA, and when you compare it to the draft class that preceded them in 2020. This draft kind of pales in comparison when you look at the overall talent we have seen thus far from the previous season. Again, a lot of that can change. Who knows what players might fall off and just have some early success in their careers, or which players are actually going to end up becoming late bloomers who start off their career slow. But either way, we're going to be continuing on in this redraft series and redrafting the last 10 draft classes down to the final 2 now. And in this video, we're going to be redrafting the class of 2021. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy this type of content, then feel free to subscribe and hit that notification bell. This is still a relatively new channel, and about 93% of you watching are not subscribed, so it would mean a great deal to me if you subscribe to help the channel grow, and in return, I'll be providing more NBA content like this all season long. Now, leading up to this draft, it was pretty clear across most mock drafts, as well as what scouts and analysts were saying, that Kade Cunningham was going to be the #1 pick, the consensus #1 pick. He was the prize of the draft and viewed to be this generational talent that you really didn't have in the previous drafts of 2020, where it was more uncertain. Kade was seen as a sure thing. If you got the #1 pick and you got Cunningham, you were going to be in good shape as a team. Yes, guys like Jalen Green, Evan Mobley were talked about a lot as high-level prospects, but Kade was the guy. He was the guy everyone wanted. And luckily for the Pistons, who had been down in the dumps for years and missed on a lot of high lottery picks, were able to land the #1 pick, which they used to select Kade Cunningham. And while some might disagree with this because Cunningham has had his fair share of injuries, I still think this was the right call for the Pistons, just based on the sheer potential of Cunningham and him being your future franchise player. And while yes, Kade has missed a lot of games, missed most of this season, and won't be returning for the year, and yes, his on-court, off-court numbers aren't as good as some of the other guys in this class, especially when you look at it from a box plus minus perspective, but you also have to understand, he's on a really bad Pistons team, and when healthy, Kade is a stud, a very versatile combo guard, great scorer and slasher to the basket, can get you 25 and 5 easily. In fact, he was averaging 26 and 6 before getting injured this season. He hasn't been the most efficient so far in his career, shooting 41% from the field and 31% from 3 on 5.6 attempts per game. Needs to work on improving his overall shot, but he's a decent defender with great two-way potential. Again, for me, it's all about the potential when you're doing redrafts for drafts that just happened. It's hard to go off on what we've currently been seeing thus far from these players, but using the potential for where they should be drafted. And based on that, I still have the Pistons taking Kade Cunningham here. With the second pick, this is where the Houston Rockets selected Jalen Green. Cunningham was the #1 recruit coming out of high school, and Jalen Green was #2, and they went in that order in the NBA draft. But rather than the Rockets taking Jalen Green here, who I have later on in this redraft, I'm going to have the Rockets take Evan Mobley. I know Evan Mobley's game hasn't really jumped out or taken that next leap from his rookie season, which, by the way, was a great rookie season. I still maintain he should have won Rookie of the Year. But the reason you're not seeing this massive jump from Mobley in his second year is in part because of the dynamic shift the Cavs took as a team year over year. A team that didn't make the playoffs last year. Jarrett Allen was out for a good portion of the season. They make that huge trade for Donovan Mitchell, so his development as a whole isn't going to be on the same pace as you would see a second-year player when the team is effectively in win-now mode. But that still doesn't take away the incredible two-way potential Evan Mobley has as a great defender, fantastic rim protector, can crash the boards, can score in the paint. He's not an outside shooter, but he can make them from time to time. It's not like he's one of those bigs that just doesn't take threes whatsoever. And I have Mobley higher here than someone like Jalen Green because of his ability to play on both ends of the floor. With the third pick, this is actually where the Cavs selected Evan Mobley, but since he's off the board, I'm going to have them take the Rookie of the Year winner in Scotty Barnes. I know Barnes is going through a bit of a sophomore slump, and I'm sure some will come in here and say, how can you have Barnes going #3 over guys like Franz Wagner, or even Jalen Green, or maybe even Josh Giddy? But the sophomore slump aside, I still think Scotty Barnes is one of the more talented players from this class, very athletic, massive wingspan, hustles on defense, can play downhill but also has a decent jumper, still needs to work on his overall efficiency on offense, and the quote-unquote slump aside, he actually has improved some aspects of his game. He's become a much better passer, his overall IQ and court vision has gotten better, he's improved his three-point shot marginally, at least he's looking more comfortable taking threes anyway. He's another player I see being a solid two-way player in the league in a few years to come. With the fourth pick, this is where the Raptors selected Scotty Barnes, but since he just went to the Cavs in this redraft, instead I'm having the Raptors select Franz Wagner here, which would have been fitting for the Raptors to give them even more length. Wagner, who went 8th overall in this draft to the Magic, has really been this kind of success story for a young rebuilding team in the Magic. Obviously, people knew the guy had potential given he was a top 10 pick, but I don't think people thought he would be as good as he's been and one of the better players on the Magic roster right now. He's been slumping a little more recently, but still improving overall from his rookie season in which he was a first-team All-Rookie. He's putting up 18.8 points per game on decent efficiency, shooting 48% from the field, 37% from three on 4.5 attempts per game. His passing has also improved. I think the biggest thing for me is Wagner's defense. Not saying it's terrible, but can he take his game to the next level by also being a strong defender? And he's also got to rebound better for his size. 4 rebounds per game isn't going to cut it. With the 5th pick, this is where the Magic selected Jalen Suggs, which may be a risky move on their part, as I think a lot of people doubted how well Suggs' game would translate to the NBA after being a phenomenal college player. Super quick, very athletic, can get hot in a hurry, but a very streaky and inconsistent player, and he's also had his own challenges staying healthy as well. For the Magic, I mean, most people thought Suggs was going to go 4, and when the Raptors selected Scotty Barnes 4, they felt they almost kind of had to select Jalen Suggs at 5, but looking back now, I'm sure they likely would have drafted differently. As such, I'm having the Magic take Jalen Green here. I'm not a huge fan of Jalen Green's game. I don't see him having as high of a ceiling as a lot of analysts think that he does, but he is still one of the better players from this draft class so far anyway. Plays with a ton of confidence, maybe sometimes a little too much confidence. I just need to see him improve his overall shooting, mainly just his consistency on offense. Like, the dude can score in a hurry. He's averaging over 21 points per game so far this season, but not on the best efficiency, and it's on a bad team, so you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. And I also need to see better defense from Green before I start thinking he's going to be the next superstar in this league, but he's still good enough to go top 5 even in a redraft. With the 6th pick, this is where the Oklahoma City Thunder selected Josh Giddy, and wouldn't you know it, I'm having the Thunder take Giddy here in a redraft. I really did go back and forth between him and Green for number 5, but I still think Jalen Green takes the edge between these two just a little. I do like Giddy's game. I think this was a great pickup for the Thunder to help with their rebuild. Giddy is one of these guys that can do a little bit of everything. He can score, pass, rebound, decent enough on defense. Would love to see him shoot better from deep, shooting 28% from his career from 3, but he makes up for it with his overall efficiency and impact he brings to the court, and actually having one of the highest player efficiency ratings in his class, as well as top 5 in value over replacement player. Can't say there would be a better option here for the Oklahoma City Thunder with the 6th pick. With the 7th pick, this is where the Golden State Warriors selected Jonathan Kaminga, who is a player I still think has a lot of potential, although I'm not as sold on him as others. Struggled in his rookie season, has looked better this season. I mean, some of it is also a bit circumstantial. Obviously, he's not going to get the type of playing time some other draft counterparts are getting because he was drafted to a contender. So obviously, this is going to impede his overall development, but he's very athletic, a versatile wing, only 20 years old, so I'm sure he's going to get better, but he likely wouldn't go top 10 in a redraft. So instead, I'm going to have the Warriors select Alfred Şengün, who ended up going 16th overall and has kind of been the steal of the draft thus far. Just a solid player that has quietly made strides from his rookie season. He actually has the highest player efficiency of his draft class so far, one of the highest box plus minuses, as well as win shares from his class. He's really improved his overall scoring in the paint as well. You can tell he's really worked on his footwork in the offseason, much better at posting up, a lot better when it comes to boxing out and crashing the boards, and while his defense could be better, it isn't awful. I like this pickup for the Warriors, who have always been in search for more depth at the 5. This gives them another option at center to go along with Kevon Looney. With the 8th pick, this is where the Orlando Magic selected Franz Wagner, but since he's off the board in this redraft, we're going to have the Magic take Herb Jones here. This might be a bit of a stretch on my part, especially when you factor in that Herb Jones was a much older player when drafted. He's already 24, while the rest of the guys from this class, most of them anyway, aren't even 21 yet. But from an impact standpoint and what Jones brings to the table in terms of defense, one of the better pickpocket players in the NBA, combined with his ability to get downhill and slash to the basket, I do need to see him improve his overall rebounding for someone of his size, and obviously his three-point shooting isn't great, but I like Herb Jones here going number 8 overall. Another one of these steals of the draft when you factor in that he was taken in the 2nd round, 35th overall. With the 9th pick, this is where the Sacramento Kings took Davion Mitchell, and I like Mitchell. He's another one of these older players, played 3 years in college, but I'm not going to take Mitchell for the Kings here. Instead, I'm going to have them take Bones Highland. I love Bones Highland's game. When he was in all of these trade rumors leading up to the deadline, I was really hoping the Bulls would pick him up, but it wasn't meant to be. Obviously, he has his flaws like a lot of young players. His defense is not good, not the best decision maker at times, but he shoots threes at a decent clip. He's pretty good in terms of his overall handles and can take care of the ball, limiting turnovers. He's a solid scorer, especially when you factor in his points per 36 minutes and per 100 possessions, as he really hasn't gotten the most playing time in his young career thus far. And what I also like about Bones is the dude is a hustler, plays hard, fights for loose balls. I'm all about the energy, guys. And so him being on the Kings, who have finally turned things around this season, giving them an added scoring depth off the bench is a nice pickup for them here. And with the 10th pick, the New Orleans Pelicans selected Zaire Williams, who had a ton of hype surrounding him coming out of high school, was the number 6 overall recruit. Thus far, hasn't really panned out, in part due to injuries and also the fact that he isn't the best fit on the Pelicans roster. So instead, I'm going to have them take a flyer here, which I know is going to be a bit of a recency bias on my part because he has had those high scoring games for the Nets recently, and that's Cam Thomas. I mean, by the time you get to the 10th pick here, you can really go a number of different ways between guys like Trey Mann, Chris Duarte, Trey Murphy, Quentin Grimes, Audasumu. But if I'm looking at the remainder of the players still left on the board, while also looking at a need for the Pelicans at that time anyway, who, keep in mind, this is before they traded for CJ McCollum, I really need some additional scoring. Cam Thomas isn't an elite level scorer by any means, but you're also basing this off of the potential of him one day being a guy who can get you 17 to 18 points per game, which I think Thomas can get to when he's in his prime. He's drastically improved his three-point shot from 27% to near 40%, although it's on pretty low volume. He's got a high motor, can operate quickly in transition and slashing to the basket. Obviously, he needs to work on his defense, his passing, like he needs to be able to do other things than just score to be an effective player in the NBA. So again, it's probably a reach to take Thomas 10th overall, but we're still so early in the careers of all these players, drafted just a season and a half ago, so you kind of have to make some assumptions on what some of these players could be in the future. So there you have it, redrafting the 2021 draft class. Let me know where you guys would have drafted differently in the comments. Be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.